Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Language Facilitation Q&A. My name is Marcy Melzer, and I am an intuitive speech and language pathologist and also a language facilitation consultant. And I help parents teach your late talking children how to use natural spoken language during the things that you do every day, all day with your kids in life. And so every Thursday on Facebook, I do a live Q&A, and now I am on Mondays on YouTube also doing Q&A. So I see there's some folks joining. Please give this video a like, say hello in the comments. If you have a question for me today, please go ahead and write it in the comments. I'll be getting to those questions. And as usual, I have been collecting some questions from parents on both YouTube and Facebook. There's enough questions that come in that I'm doing these twice a week now. And I just want to let you know, if you have, like I said, any questions today, go ahead and write them in the comments. And if you're watching on the replay, if you're not catching me live on this video, you can go ahead and put your comments in the replay of this video. Go ahead, write your question in the comments, and I'll get to it on my next video. I have a wonderful social media assistant, Christina. Hi, Christina, who is helping me with keeping track of things. Hopefully, I'm not going to miss any questions. And if I do miss your question, I'll certainly get to it on my next video. All the videos that I do on YouTube are posted over on my Facebook, and all the live Q&As that I do on Facebook are also posted here on YouTube. And you might want to look at some of the previous live Q&As. They're all in a playlist. So here on my Waves of Communication channel on YouTube, you can go to the playlist that says Live Q&A with Parents, and you'll see all the Q&As from, it's been 2 years now almost, I've been doing Q&A sessions. So there are many, many questions that are answered in there. Look at the titles and see, for example, like this one today, we're going to be talking about oral motor issues, which is a very common question that comes up with some late talkers. And so I wanted to talk about it. I actually had 2 moms who posted questions this week about oral motor. And the first one comes from Saudomini. I hope I said your name right. And I apologize always, you guys. I hate to look down my nose at you, but I have these glasses. I'm trying, maybe I'll move my glasses so I can see, so I'm not looking at my nose. You're not seeing at my nose. Sorry, everybody. It is what it is with live Q&A. But I do have them written down, and I have to work with my glasses how they go. So sorry. All right. Saudomini. All right. She says, my son is 10 years old and does need-based communication following language facilitation. So, I assume that means she is following my language facilitation. Speech clarity is not there. According to her speech therapist, his tongue's elasticity is less. So he can't control his tongue when he speaks. Is there any tongue exercise? Please advise. And then I'm going to combine this with one other question that I got from another mom named Preetam. I hope I said that right. And Preetam, a couple of days ago, put a note that said she is interested in techniques to resolve oral motor issues in our late talking children, like spitting, blowing, and moving their mouth to form words. And I'm not sure exactly if the child is doing those things extra or not, but I'm assuming that right now, probably not doing them if you're posting a question on here. So for both of you ladies and any of you other parents who have children who are having difficulty moving their mouth, this is what I want to start with. The first thing what we do whenever we look at an issue that we're noticing is a challenge. And that's why I call this a challenge, because if your child is moving their mouth otherwise, we have to figure out what the challenge is. So the first question I always have parents ask yourself as you analyze your child's abilities and figure out what exactly they can do with their mouth. so we can see what they are using their mouth successfully for, and then we can consider what kinds of things they are having challenges doing with their mouth. Like in Prenum set, you spitting, blowing, and moving their mouth to say words is a challenge. And in Sudami's, she's saying that the speech clarity is not there. And both of these parents have been told by a professional that the blame is on the child's oral motor musculature. So that means that the tongue in Sudamini's case, her child's tongue is low tone. It doesn't have elasticity. It's weak. It's flaccid. That's what the therapist is observing in the child. And in the other case, the therapist is probably, or someone is trying to get the child to do these things: spitting, blowing, and making words, saying words with their mouth. Oops, I'm sorry. And those things are not successful. So in your child, we need to look at first, before we start to pick on things that we're not good at yet, before we start to look at those things, we want to find the things that your child is doing successfully with their mouth. And you can't do this by testing them. And that's what happens with speech therapists is they say, stick out your tongue, move your tongue back and forth like this, go blah, 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 blah. They try to get them to imitate things to do with their mouth and test to see. And when the child doesn't comply with those demands, stick out your tongue, move it around, do this, even if they demonstrate, do this, say this word, make this noise this way. When they are asked to do those things, they're not complying, which is giving the person, the evaluator, the therapist in this case, the idea, the impression to believe that the child's tongue is not able to be strong or tight or make clear noises, because the child is not able to make clear noises for the therapist. So, hey, Rena. So thank you, Rena. I thank you for your review of my book. And hi, Bhupinder. Thanks for joining me. So we're talking about oral motor issues. And if you have been told by a therapist or you're asking your child to do things and they're not doing them, the first thing I want you to do is to kind of put out of your head the assumption that they are not able to do those things. And let's look at what your child is able to do. So, for example, eating is always the first thing I ask parents with oral motor issues to talk about. How does your child eat? If your child is able to eat a variety of foods, I'm not talking about do they eat everything that you say. I'm talking about when your child wants to eat, when they choose to eat, when they are hungry. Is your child able to eat a variety of foods? Is your child able to drink from a variety of different containers? Can they drink from a water bottle and an open cup and a straw? Can they eat solid food they have to chew? Can they bite something off? Can they chew things up? And when they do eat, is the food staying in their mouth and going down into their tummy? Are they choking on food? Is the food all over their face? And in the process of eating, are there behaviors you are observing consistently around eating and or talking? Because there are avoidances and preferences and habits that cause children to refuse to do some things that they are able to do when they are clearly able to move those muscles and do them. So what we need to understand with a child who has been labeled or identified as having an oral motor problem is what is the problem? If your child is eating food successfully and a variety of foods, that means that their tongue will function well enough to provide all of the speech sounds you need them to provide. They just need to learn how to do the coordination to move their mouth to say the words. That has nothing to do with oral motor strength, coordination, how it doesn't even really have anything to do with the motor section of the brain. It is the intent, because if the physical ability is there, the motor section is intact. So if your child can eat, if your child can make many different noises on their own, if they're blah, 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 if they're making noises, humming, babbling, different kinds of things that sound like talking, then they are using their mouth to make other things. Again, not on command. We're talking never on command. These are things that you as a parent observe your child doing when they are happy, when they are feeling easy, happy, safe, and fun. If your child is able to move their mouth to make noises independently, it doesn't have to be words, it's just their own. And it's a variety. If they're making a ooh, ah, e. If they are doing even a variety of different vowels with their mouth, that means that they are moving their tongue. Now, if all your child ever says is, if that's all your child ever does, if they don't eat foods well, or when you try to feed them foods, they're choking, they're gagging on foods, and it's not a preference sensory. Remember, this is foods they want to eat. And if your child is avoiding foods like crunchy things, things they have to bite, things they have to chew and manipulate, then it could mean that their mouth is having challenges as far as being able to move functionally. And this would indicate an area of problem in the motor section of the brain, that things are not coordinated. So we're not talking about on command, we're talking about on their own, subconscious, breathing, eating. Are they making noises and doing things on their own? If they are, when they are not under pressure, doing things with their mouth, it is not a coordination issue. It is a intent issue. They don't know what to do with their mouth to make the sounds that they are intending to say. So what happens usually with late talkers who have a history of problems with their mouth. Now, there are a population of children who have difficulty with the motor portion of their mouth, that it is difficult for them to make any sounds or words that are beyond it is challenging for them to do that because there is a coordination problem that is in their motor part of their brain. Now, many of things are not rooted in the motor cortex of the brain, but actually in the neck and the stem and the lower parts of the body. And so many children who have been identified as having neurological apraxia or problems that they believe are brain related, that your child's mouth is never going to improve, then you're going to have those issues that will stay with your child on a structural level. So let's say, for example, your child has a syndrome, like another mom here a child who has Rett syndrome, a child who has Down syndrome. If your child is diagnosed with a syndrome that causes their entire motor body to be low tone, then their mouth will also be low tone. In those cases, it is not exercises. In fact, in no case, if your child is actually having physiological motor problems making the sounds because they're having trouble eating or having trouble talking or having trouble breathing, it is not exercise, repeated exercise that improves those things. So if your child has a cerebral palsy, which is a motor cortex disturbance, Down syndrome, a syndrome that causes involuntary motor movement that a child cannot control themselves, then you're going to have to work with what they have, because language facilitation is for helping children control what they are able to control. So if your child is just like if your child is missing a finger, they're not going to give a high five, they're going to give a high four, but they're going to adapt to do what they do, still accumulate a beautiful gesture of high five and connection, even if they don't have those parts. And with children who have true motor structural, physiological, genetic motor problems that are physiological and evident when they're eating and breathing, then those kids are always going to need to work with doing the best they can with what they have, which is the same that we do for children who are already intact from a motor perspective. So a child with an autism diagnosis, ear infections, no other physiological motor problems going on with them, which you can address, by the way, those motor problems with chiropractic is helpful. A lot of different gross motor, whole body motor issues help the mouth. So if your child has overall body issues, then whole body issues are important part of your language facilitation. And you should be doing all of your language facilitation activities with whole body exercises. Very little fine motor stuff, at least with a child who is limited verbal to nonverbal. If they're not even making many noises that sound like words and they have other physical problems, it has to start with them even understanding that their mouth is for talking. And when they're giving you an uh, if they're giving you anything that you know has some meaning behind it, especially if it's in combination with their nonverbal behavior. So if they're dragging you across the room and they're saying ka, 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 which means come, and they're dragging you across the room, even in a child that has very little ability to move their mouth, you have the opportunity to show them that you understand their talking. Come. You are saying come. You are trying to use your mouth and make some talking come out. You must call your child on their tries and celebrate them. So if your child doesn't feel like they have the ability to move their mouth, to eat or talk, and they are trying, then you call out the try and you talk about what they're trying. And if they seem frustrated, they are trying to say words and they're crying and they're sad because they can't do it, you have to acknowledge that and say to your child, I know it is hard for you to move your mouth. I know you feel like it doesn't work, and we have to figure out why it doesn't work. And you have to tell your child that you're going to help them try to figure out what's going on. And that's when you book the chiropractic appointment. That's when you talk to structural people who work with overall body coordination issues. And that's how you help your child to improve their overall body coordination, which in turn will improve their speech. But the whole body coordination is going to distract a child away from it. Now, if we're talking about pure oral motor, apraxia of speech, your child is doing everything else. They can eat everything. They can make all kinds of noises. But when they try to talk, their talking is poor. And that's kind of what's going on with Sautamini. Her child has figured out how to say words, but not very well. And at 10 years old, your child definitely knows that they are not using very clear speech. And they also know that they're not very good at responding to those imitation things. So if the therapist is saying to your child, do this with your mouth, blah, 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 move your tongue, say this word, whatever, and the child is intimidated, not confident, they don't feel like they have the ability to do it, and or the therapy activity is no fun, or it's too repetition, or the therapist is physically trying to make the child do something, putting their hands on the child. These things are so disempowering for late talking children. One of the moms in my program, Marianne, she has a 10-year-old late talker who was in this same situation. And it was his whole body coordination that was causing him to not be able to talk. And what they ended up doing when his mouth started to work better was she started to show him how his tries, as soon as he tried again and tried again and tried to say words, and every try he had was celebrated, he tried harder. And guess what happens when children try harder? They improve their skills. So they don't do it when you tell them to try. They do it when they want to try. So it's all of this. All of this is all about motivation of your child to try harder to say words better, not to get a reward. It can't even be rewarded tangibly with cookies or candies or whatever, because they will try whatever they're doing. But if there is some kind of a reward attached to it, some kind of a tangible, if you say this 10 times, you get a cookie, a penny, a thing, a whatever, your child's focus is not on building the language structures to develop the skill. It is on trying hard to do whatever they have to do just to get the thing. And that is the long, long, long road, because for every 10 of those attempts, your child remembers it 1 or 2 times. But if your child is motivated, so here's what you do. If you have an older child and they are not using very clear speech, or they're not doing, what they want to do with their talking. Again, why do we need these oral motor skills? When they are trying to talk, if they are got something to say to you, and if they're abandoning even trying to use their mouth by using just nonverbal things to communicate, pointing, dragging, picture systems, iPad systems, whatever, they just always go back to the letter board or whatever it is instead of trying to talk with you, that means they don't want to. They are not doing it because, he could do it in speech therapy or whatever. If they habitually go to the nonverbal choice, that's their habit because that's their comfort level. And something has to feel better about trying to talk for them to want to try it more. That's all there is to it. And older children, it's easy to get them motivated to try harder to say the words that they want to say, not the words that you are wanting to say. This intervention can never include a list of words that you show up with. It has to happen during the activities that you do with your child that they are interested and focused on. So if your child has a thing that they want to do and they are looking at that thing, they will be motivated to hear the words about that thing. They will be motivated to listen to you speak carefully and use specific vocabulary about that thing, as long as you have no pressure for them to perform. And they need to listen to you describe their favorite things with the words that they would want to say it over and over again during your everyday activities in order for them to feel comfortable enough to independently try it. And as long as you are prompting your child to do things with their mouth, say things, move their tongue around, do any exercises, you are wasting your time, because in that moment, while you're trying to pull some activity or behavior out of your child, you could be talking about the things that they love. And it doesn't even have to be anything they love. It just has to be something fun about your environment. There is something fun in everything. Everything. And if you find what is fun, what your child thinks is fun about riding in the car, shoveling the snow, sitting in traffic, if it isn't fun, it isn't fun. And that's why this clarity of speech and oral motor exercises are never fun for children. They are a chore. It's like the children who play piano and all they have to do is play the scales and the scales and the scales. So you want to help your child play the song. And if you're going to teach them to play the piano, and in order to play a song, they have to hear songs. And it's the same with language development with kids who have oral motor problems. Even if they believe their mouth isn't working very well, they have to get over that and try it in order for them to develop at all. And you cannot make a child do this and expect them to have results fast. You're going to have to browbeat them, bribe them, get them to do it. Any of these techniques that are repetitive activities, think about it like boot camp for losing weight. For 2 weeks, you go and you do 1,000 of these and 500 of these and this reps and that rep and this machine and that machine. And you go through the circuit and you do these things subconsciously, just whatever. Eventually, my body will get stronger, right? Well, you may get really good at doing the machines and those things at the gym, and you may get very good at playing you play all the scales on the piano, but unless you play a song or unless you actually go out and run or lift things or use your strength and skills in functional activities and try them out on your own, how do you ever know how functionally strong or smart or skilled or whatever you are? And with language, it's the same. So for these children who you're being told it's their mouth that's broken, it's their physical body that's broken, unless their whole physical body is not moving very well. And in that case, you need to address their whole physical body. If it is just their mouth for speech that's not working, I challenge you to find out what else could be blocking your child's motivation to talk. So if they're being asked to say the same things over and over again, and you're telling them, oh, good. Oh, not so good. Oh, you did it good. Oh, that one wasn't good. Every time they hear ooh, that wasn't right, or ooh, that's not quite right, that's a negative hit on them wanting to try again. It's like, again, I didn't do it right. They hear in their own head, their own little heads, I did it wrong again. They said no. I didn't get the reward. I had to do it 5 more times. I have to do the same thing again this week that I did last week because I wasn't good enough at it last week. And this teacher, therapist, parent is making me do it again. If that looks like what your child is feeling, I mean, think about it. I said that's what looks like your child is feeling on purpose. You know how your child is feeling by watching them. If they're dejected in their therapy, if these exercises your therapist is asking you to do feel ridiculous to you and you have no idea why you're doing them, then listen to your own self. Okay, it's been proven over and over and over again, even in the American Speech and Hearing Association, that repetitive oral motor activities do not facilitate natural spoken language. It's been disproven a long time ago, but because there was a lot of people speech therapists who made money on it. They sold all kinds of equipment. You could go to the convention and fill your bag with blows and whistles and bubbles and spitting things and straws and rubber bands and all these kinds of things to make coordination with your mouth, somehow expecting that these things are going to get your child using natural spoken language, which is what parents want. So if that's what you want from your child, I'm assuming because you're watching my video, if that's what you want from your child, then you need to facilitate that spoken language from a linguistic perspective, not a behavioral perspective. If you want your child to say a list of words, you can teach them with behavior training and rewards. You can. That's what speech therapists do, making their money every day, all day. But it is not the same as natural language, natural spoken language. Now, do children have to learn how to say a list of words before they can learn spoken language? No. They can learn it from parents while they listen to you, while you talk to them every day, all day. So hopefully that was a clear enough explanation. I know I kind of rambled on there. It's been about a half an hour, but oral motor is a big thing. When therapists can't figure out how to help you or help your child say the words on their list, they blame it on the child's mouth. and somehow their mouth or tongue or whatever is not broken. In this case, his therapist says his tongue's elasticity is less. How did that therapist test that child's tongue elasticity? Did she ask the child to say certain things? You don't know. But I don't know how to test a child's tongue elasticity without like having them push against a spoon or try to in their tongue, some kind of thing like that. Otherwise, how are you going to know? Right? So, hey, I see there's more people joining. Hi, VJ and Anjali, and Bhupinder and Reena. Okay, so Reena says, my question is that I'm trying to apply your strategies. However, I've noticed that his eye contact is not the best lately. He can hear what I say, but he doesn't look at my face when I'm talking to him. All right, Reena, so that's a great question. Moving on from the oral motor argument into the child who is not really looking at the parent's face, but listening. So I appreciate that you are following my strategies and also that you read my book. Thank you so much. And hi, Maya. There, I have your question coming too. And that's the next question on my thing, but let me get Reena's really quick. So what happens with kids when they are talking to you, when you are talking to your child, is they don't have to be doing this. They don't have to be looking straight in your eye and, that kind of stuff. Your child is listening to you when they look at you periodically and smile. Okay, if they are intent. It's kind of like if you're teaching a lecture to a group of people, if the audience is watching, if they're looking at you, but if they're on their phones or digging in their pockets or doing whatever, they're not. And that's how every parent needs to do with language facilitation. As you're making these wonderful language models for your children, you could be wasting your breath if your child's not even listening to you. And many kids aren't even ready to listen to parents yet. But what happens is when parents make this shift from prompting and pulling language from their kiddos into language models, the prompting goes away. So if anybody's watching this and you've taken the swapping the prompting challenge, and I know a bunch of you have who are watching, and all of a sudden your child talks less and maybe they aren't looking at you as much, or they're looking at you more but not all the time or whatever. The thing is, a shift is happening in you. You are changing how you're, as a parent, talking to your child, and your child is responding to that. So you have to pay attention to see, is your child actually listening to you? So if you're talking about what they're holding in their hand and you're talking about that thing and they are looking at that thing with you, they don't have to be looking at you necessarily, but they will look up periodically. Yes, we're talking about this card. That's right. You're right, Mom. And they'll look at you just periodically and see. So that's one way to know if your child is listening. They don't have to be staring to be listening. Also, here's the best way to test this, my favorite strategy. So let's say your child brings you a book to read, or you decide that you're going to try to read a book with your child, or you always read every night or whatever. And you start the story and you're reading and your child is focusing and you're talking about the pictures or whatever, and you see your child looking away. Maybe they start to get distracted because if you're doing language facilitation reading with your child, you should be looking at to see how is your child responding to everything you say. If you're just talking, reading, and your child is looking away or doing something else, you've already lost them. And if you think they might be listening, but they're looking away, because some kids do understand and listen well while they're not looking at you. Maybe they're still trying to process, or now that you're talking nice and slow, your child wants to kind of look away to give their brain a chance to process what you're saying. Here's how you know: you stop talking. Because just like on this video, if you were listening to me on the replay, just because I stopped talking for a second, you probably looked back at the screen to see if it was broken or it snipped or something like that, right? I called your attention to looking at me just by stopping talking for a second. So if you're in the middle of talking, I'm reading a story, talking about whatever, just stop. Just stop for a second. And your child, if they are listening to you, will diverge their attention just like you did right here. But if I caught you watching this on the replay while you're washing dishes and whatever, and I had lost your attention, it also helps bring your attention back to listening to me. And then if your child is gone, like, like literally their attention is elsewhere, then you might as well quit talking because they're not listening to you anyway. So this is a wonderful strategy to make sure that your child is staying with you while you are talking to them. And you have to give them credit and ability to bow out and tap out of what you're saying too, because maybe they don't want to listen to you. Maybe they're tired of what you're saying. So if while you are talking to your child, you see them roll their eyes, divert their attention, or literally start walking away from you. Some kids will even do this, they'll put their hand right up in front of the camera. It's like, no, stop. I don't even want to talk to you anymore. Stop talking to me, Mom. They'll put their hand on your mouth. It's because they don't want to hear what you're saying. They don't want to comply with you. They don't want to listen to you. And that in itself is a communication. It's very, very important that your child is listening and on the same page. Otherwise, you're just wasting your breath. Okay, I've got a couple more questions coming in. So let me go to another question that I got from another mom. So, and this is kind of both moms are the same. Actually, it's not a mom, it's a mom and a dad. So there's Kenneth and there is MR who is here, hi Maya. So both of them are saying that their kids are talking a lot. One is a 4-year-old and one is a 5-year-old. And so what Kenneth says is it a good sign that my 4-year-old late talker is starting to make sounds such as baby, baby, wee, wee, and he tries to say I love you, which is amazing. And then Maya says my 5-year-old autistic daughter is vocalizing a lot. She can say words like banana, baby, bubbles. So there's a lot of going on in both of these families, but not consistently. All right. So making sounds, but not consistently. And she also will say vowel sounds, and she calls her ama, which means mother. And can it be considered as a start for her verbal communication? And so both Maya and Kenneth, your kids are definitely starting to use verbal communication. Because what happens is, remember we talked about earlier when I talked about the kids with the oral motor issues, when their whole body is working, like they're able to listen and focus and process what you're saying is coming out of your mouth. They're not just 100% relying on their eyes for you to show them everything. This is when kids move into the situation where they are trying to get you to say more words, because this is their first attempts at talking. Think about baby toddlers, little babies, when they are, because even though these kids are 4 or 5, this is developmental language. So it's gonna look at the very beginnings similar to what a small toddler would say. So even kids who are before 1 years old, ba, 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 ma, 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 ma. But the thing is, with a 4 or 5-year-old child, they have in their head visual representation, and they also have heard many, many times the words to label these pictures that they have in their mind. And they are trying to sound like you or the videos they watch, whatever they're hearing. When they're making noises, they're trying to sound like whatever they are hearing. So if your child is, for both of you, Kenneth and Maya, if your child is listening to you talking a lot, that means that they are hearing a lot of those like that's sticking out to them, but maybe they're not hearing the other sounds, the s, the sh, the ba, the ooh. So start to make some differences and changes in your talking if you're doing vocal play with your kids. But what I recommend is that when you are talking at this stage, when kids are trying to say things that sound like words, that are sort of like words, that I think that was a word, but it wasn't quite right. But you know, because you're watching your child, they're standing there holding the baby. Or like I said earlier, they're dragging you across the room going, ka, ka, ka. And you know that it means come, or even that it means come with me. I want to show you the tower I built in the other room. Like, you know, it means this big, long thing, but they are not just using their body language, but they're starting to use their mouth. So at this stage, it's very, very important that you give them the words they need to say what they're not good at yet. So if it's ga, 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 you say come. You want to come. You want me to come with you. Where are we going? We are going to the room to see you made a tower. I see your tower. And remember, all of these, even though I said, where are we going? Because I just said it in my head, thinking, in my head, I would be like, thinking, where are we going? But immediately I gave the answer. We are going to your room, because the child communicated that to me by dragging me in there. Okay. Your child is communicating all the time. You don't have to guess. You can say it out loud with very careful, slow talking. And at this very first stage, Maya and Kenneth, you must be using the slowest talking you can do. And what I usually recommend is that you pick one 20 to 30-minute period of time during the day where you speak so slowly that your child can hear every sound in every word. And it doesn't have to be, it can be interesting, because again, it is about the things that they are doing, seeing, feeling, hearing, tasting, touching, all of that. You talk about the things that they are experiencing, seeing with their body, saying those words in very careful talking, and your child will, in those 20-minute periods of time, start to learn how to listen to talking. And this is the necessary step to get your child from this vocalization because I'm trying and I want to be heard, to somebody cares that what I'm saying with my mouth, even though it's not good words yet, means something, and that person, whoever is facilitating language with me, wants to help me. They want to help me do it. So that's how it goes. Wow, this life is getting long. I roll on these rambles because it's really, really important for all of you parents to understand how powerful you are. By just guessing what your child wants and responding to them, you are missing the opportunity to model the excellent talking that you can do in whatever language you speak, so that your child can hear those things and know how to use them later. Give them credit for listening and remembering things. And when you make things fun, if it isn't fun, it isn't fun. Here's my book. If it isn't fun, it isn't fun. That's why this book is called If It Isn't Fun, It Isn't Fun. If you don't make everything you ask your child to listen to, watch, super fun and entertaining and motivating for them, they're not going to be interested enough to get it, process it. It's challenging for them to do this. Listening to fast talking for late talkers is impossible. It's why they're late talking. They're not good listeners. But when you train them to be good listeners by giving them models that they want to listen to, they train themselves to be good listeners. But they need the right kind of models, because as soon as the stimulus coming at them is too fast, too much, too whatever, they go back to, nope, I'm just going to use my eyes right now. Because it's almost like you turn down the volume on the TV. I got to use my eyes again because I can't understand what's coming out of this box, the speaker box that's coming at me, my speaking partner. So hopefully that explains how to help your kids. And it's a super good indicator, but it also is a spot where you can get stuck. Parents get stuck at all the different levels of language development because their kids get in the habits and the parents get in the habits and they get stuck in the habits. So if you're in the habit of guessing what your child wants because they're demonstrating it for you without modeling language, it's going to keep you stuck there. If your child is using needs-based language and they're saying words like cookie or I want cookie or whatever to get the thing, and they're not doing it consistently, they're only doing it when you prompt them, then you have trained them to be dependent on your prompting. And you have to take the swapping the prompting challenge to learn how to get them out of prompt dependence. Kids are trained to be dependent on other people to make them talk, tell them to talk. If everyone all day is only providing them with do this, say this models, do this, say this, come here, take my hand, come over here, give me this, come over here. And when they're on their own, there's nobody talking to them at all. They're watching videos or they're, on their own. But then the other training time, the teaching time that they're in ABA therapy or whatever kind of therapy, for many hours a day, even when they come home from those things, if homeschool moms or moms are trying to teach all day long, kids shut it down. They learn how to tune it out and it becomes less effective. And that's what keeps you stuck. So you must understand what the blockage is. Why doesn't your child want to talk? Because if they want to talk and they're excited about talking and trying to say words, they will do it every day, all day. And that's what the parents who are watching my videos, who have swapped the prompting and doing all of that, that's what they're seeing in their kids like moms like Bhupinder. So I know that this is happening. I know that this is happening for parents, and I know you can do it too. You just have to change your mindset. Think about what could you be doing that's blocking your child's process. And if you want to know, there is the whole process to analyze what the blockages are is here. And by the way, I have this up today because I know that a lot of people find me from my book or my other YouTube videos, or maybe you got shared this off Facebook or something like that. If you are watching this video today and you have not seen my free class for parents on my website, all you have to do is put your email in. And then you will be able to see it's 46 minutes long. And it explains what's going on to block the process for families. Because unless you understand what's blocking the process, you can do all kind of flashcards 24/7 all day long and bribe your child to do things, but they're never going to develop spoken language. That's how kids get to be 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old with stuck in needs-based communication. And this needs-based communication, the waves of communication and language facilitation is designed to get parents to the next level no matter where your child is. If they're not even responding to you or anybody else, you got to get them to do that first. Then you've got to get them to listen. Then you've got to get them to process and understand what you're saying. And then it's like 4 chapters in, you can actually expect them to try to say words on their own, because no child can learn natural spoken language unless they hear it. Think about if I said your job today was to learn brand new spoken language, whatever that you've never learned before, and you had to do it by memorizing. Most people can't do it that way, and most kids don't either. Not to develop it functionally, and that's how it works. Okay, so there was one more question, and I think I just answered it, but I'll just say it again. Sinduja. My daughter, Sinduja, because you say the J with the Asian languages. My daughter only labels things she utters in a low tone. She also is not using her words to express. So once again, if your child is stuck, if your child is refusing to say words, if you know they can and they're not talking and they aren't wanting to try, something is blocking their process. The first place to start is with this class. There is also a video on my YouTube channel about what is blocking your child's process. It's usually prompting, and that's why I made the swapping the prompting challenge. You can find that if this is the first time you're watching me on YouTube. Say hello, please. Write a comment and let me know that you're here. And even if you're watching on the replay, go ahead and put a question, because I will save them for next week. I am here doing live Q&A 2 times a week, every Monday at noon. So like this video, please. Only one person has liked this video and other people are watching. Please hit the like button. That helps me out a lot. If I'm helping you today, you can help me by hitting the like button. Thanks. There's my YouTube rant. All right, let's see. Next question is from Anjali. All right, I'm going to put my glasses up so that I can do. My son's speech therapist says he is not interested in talking because I respond to his nonverbal communication. I need to force him to speak to get his needs met. You do not need to force him to speak to get his needs met. No. This doesn't work most of the time, obviously, for your son, because Aw, it doesn't work most of the time for my son, as the moment he is asked to speak, he loses interest in the object. He says few words and a lot of babbling, but his speech is not growing. His speech is not growing because in your household, you need to really watch this. You need to really watch this. What happens with parents, Anjali, is that when you get good, just like your speech therapist has said, that you are anticipating his needs. Let's say he brings you the cookies. Well, he's communicated to you that he wants the cookies. You obviously know him saying the cookies, and that the speech therapist is telling you that unless you make him say the word cookies, he's never gonna do it. And the answer is, it's not true, but there is something that you do need to do in that point, but it's not withhold the object. It's just say the word cookies. It's just say it, because once again, your child is not motivated to say the words. As soon as you put that caveat on, like, I used to be able to bring you the cookies and you gave me cookies. Now, since you talked to that speech therapist lady, every time I bring you cookies, you say no. And here's what happens. The child, and probably the reason that your child, it doesn't work in your house, because when you hesitate, so for your child used to bring you the cookies, you said, oh, you want cookies, and you gave him a cookie, and he went and did his thing. Now your child brings you the cookie and you say, oh, you want a cookie, here's your cookie. And instead of doing that, you're withholding it, but you're also not, your child is too focused on the cookies to get it. He's not listening to you say the word. Okay. So the reason it's not working for the therapist is because your child's not listening to you. He is bringing them to you and waiting for you to hand him a cookie. He's not listening to anything you're saying. He's watching you and waiting for the cookie to fall in his hand. And if it doesn't, because you hold the cookies back for some reason, he non-verbally understands, Mom is saying I can't have a cookie right now. And he leaves, because he knows that if mom thinks I can have a cookie, she'll give it to me. She always did before. And now if she doesn't give it to me, that must mean that I can't have a cookie. Kids don't understand the difference between I can't have it until you say the word, or I can't have it because I'm eating dinner in 5 minutes, or we have no cookies, or I don't want you to do that thing. They don't understand the difference. No means no to a child. So they don't care, they don't care enough to try super hard. Now, if a child is desperate to have something and they know they have to do a trick, say a word, sit down in their chair, like the dog when they get food. My kid's dog, they have this behavior. They make their dog sit down because he attacks the food bowl. So they make him sit down before they put the food down so that he knows to address the food with a little less vigor. And that's a behavior he has learned, but they tell me when I dog sit, you always have to make sure that you make him sit down before you put the food. That's a behavior that the dog has learned to keep him from eating that food. Those are behaviors like keeping kids from running in the street so they don't get hit by a car. Those are behaviors we do to keep kids safe. Kids don't do behaviors to get things. They already have communicated non-verbally by bringing the thing to you. So the answer to the question is, I know a long rant again there, but it's so common. And forcing your child to say a word, like I said, they're not even listening to you in the first place. So even that strategy isn't going to work. It's going to be very inconsistent. The child might get it, they might not. So if your child brings you something, you have to say, you want this thing. You are telling me. You have to stop your child and say, I understand you are saying to me that you want this. You want this cookie. And then you have to make your child non-verbally ask for that thing by holding out their hand. Do not let them take the cookie from you. As soon as you grab it from there, don't let them take it from you and go away. Make sure that they know that they are asking you and that you want them to use your words to ask, right? Without saying use your words, but you model that behavior for them. You want a cookie. I have cookies. I will give you a cookie. hold out your hand and put it here. Don't say, I won't give you a cookie. Say no negatives. Don't withhold it. Say, oh, you want a cookie. Say it out loud. That's all you have to do. And if you say it 2 or 3 or 4 times, say it out loud while you give your cookie and put it in your child's hand instead of letting them take it from you and go. Then your child will learn this is how you ask. Cookie, they'll say it, and then you'll be like, you want a cookie. It'll move into want a cookie. It'll move into I want a cookie, and they will hear it more and more, and they will understand that words are the preferred way to get this object. So if your child is going away from you, they think you're saying no, probably, and that's what's going on, Anjali. So, all right. That was the last question for today. I'm glad he's saying a lot of words and his speech isn't growing because he has no need, just like your therapist said, he doesn't have a need to use words if you are guessing. And if you are guessing what he wants and getting things to him on his own, she's absolutely right, your speech therapist. He will not learn to say words. The blockage is that no one is teaching him the language he needs. Everyone is just testing him, and he's not ready for the test. It's like telling your child to go for the finals before you've actually taught them the material. You have to teach your child how to listen to you, understand what the words are, and give them their own opportunity to practice saying words. And I promise you, the first words they say are always the things they love. That's why needs-based language comes first, because they know you love to hear them say words, and you give them things when they say words, and you do things for them. So that's always a very good way to do it. All right. I think I've, again, hit the bottom of my questions for today. We've been at this 55 minutes. I like to keep these Q&As under an hour for everybody. Thank you so much for joining me today. Just one more time, I want to let you know about all the resources you can find. You can do my free class. And then, before you go, my communication switch workshop. If you live in the United States, especially those of you who are from India or Asia over there, it's going to be on a Sunday morning there in Mumbai. And so here in Florida, where I live in the United States, or even other people in the, farther on the West Coast of the United States, it's 8:30 p.m. on a Saturday night. It's a really cool workshop I'm doing with my friend Devangi Dalal, and she is in Mumbai. She's going to have an auditorium full of parents there. I'm going to be hosting the online version. We're going to help parents go through exercises to find out what's blocking their speech and even create your own language facilitation plan. Right there in the workshop, you're going to be able to do it with your kiddos so that you can take them to the next level. It's marketed for parents of young kids, but language development is language development. I think it's good for parents of any age, and it'll be super fun. So it's a Saturday evening. If you're, here in Florida, it's going to be overnight. It's going to be fun. We're going to hit overnight, midnight, and you're going to be able to learn, ask questions. It's interactive. We're hosting it online, so it's going to be live stream. Devangi's going to do some of the talking. I'm going to do some of the talking. So to have 2 professionals to work with you. And the cost is only $30. So if you and your partner, for $30, you can attend this workshop. It's a 3-hour workshop. It's insane how a wonderful opportunity this is for parents to have an interactive way to talk about your child's issues and get some specific coaching so that you can find out where to get started right now, the next day. As soon as your kids wake up in the morning, you'll know what to do for their language facilitation. So the communication switch workshop link is in the description of this video, as is the Amazon link to find my book and my website, wavesofcommunication.com, for the free class. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for joining me today. Thanks so much for liking this video. If you're watching on the replay and you're watching over on Facebook, I'll see you over there on Thursday, 2 p.m. Eastern, for my next Q&A. Have a great week, everybody, and I'll see you all in my next video. Bye for now.